English questions about books. What is your favorite book? My favorite book is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I read this book when I was really young, but I like it because I learned a lot of lessons from the story. It is a difficult book to read, but it also helped me improve my reading. Until this day, this book still has an impact on who I am as a person. Do you prefer fiction or non-fiction books? Fiction means that it's made up or fantasy, and non-fiction means that it deals in facts. When I was a teenager, I really enjoyed fantasy and fiction books. But now as an adult, I prefer non-fiction books because I can learn a lot of information from them and I can apply it to my real life. How often do you read? I don't read as often as I should. I read about a book every month. But I listen to more audiobooks these days because when I travel, I listen to audiobooks. So when I walk somewhere or I drive or I take the train or bus, I listen to an audiobook. I listen to audiobooks more than I read books, but I hope to read more in the future. If you could be any character in a book, who would it be? In the classic book Moby Dick, the main protagonist or character is called Ishmael. He starts the book off by saying, "My name is Ishmael." Ishmael travels with the captain and a very interesting crew on the search for Moby Dick. It's beautifully written, and I think I would love to be Ishmael because he goes on this adventure and he gets to see and interact with the crew and the captain, and the finale is just epic. What is your favorite kind of book? These days, I enjoy self-help books about success and building businesses because I want to learn more about how to be successful in the future. All these ideas and tips and techniques that I can learn from books, I can apply to my business and future life. If you could write a book, what would it be about? If I could write a book, I would write a non-fiction book about teaching. I would include my journey as a teacher, as well as research great tips and techniques for teachers to use in the classroom. I would write this book to help other teachers out there. Can you name any famous authors? There are many fantastic and genius authors out there. Ernest Hemingway, Virginia Woolf, Jane Austen, William Shakespeare, and Charles Dickens. These are all past authors. Some current famous authors include James Patterson and Stephen King. Why do many people say that books are better than movies? When you read a book, you have to create the story using your imagination. Movies are usually made for a general audience, but in books you can find new vocabulary, you can find a more poetic way of expressing yourself, and all the words the author uses, you have to put in your mind and create the story using your imagination. So your imagination will always be better than something that is made, however good it is. So books will always be regarded better than movies. Most CEOs read 50 books a year, but the average person only 3. How can books help someone be more successful? Reading books is a skill. With that skill, you gather knowledge and new ideas. Successful people like CEOs read a lot to get more ideas and to increase their knowledge, then apply that to their business. If someone wants to be successful, they should read more on books that can serve them in the future. Reading any book is great because you are learning from another person. But if you want to be really successful in your field, read books that can help you in whatever you are working on. So, fantasy can improve your vocabulary and your imagination. So you need a balance of fantasy for creativity, but also non-fiction books that can give you ideas on how to be more successful in the future. Is there a famous book from your country? There is a famous book from South Africa called Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. And there is another very famous author called G.M. Coetzee who wrote a book, Disgrace. But I read this book and I utterly hated it, although many other people say that they learn new lessons about it. I didn't enjoy it though. Do you think books will disappear? I believe that books won't disappear, but the format of books might. These days, we want to conserve paper. We don't want to use too much paper, so more books are moving online and less are being printed. What is the last book you've read? The last book I read was called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie is one of the most famous authors in the world. How to Make Friends and Influence People is one of the most sold books in the world. I really enjoyed this book because it gave me lots of ideas on how to stop worrying and enjoy my life. Did your parents read to you when you were young? My dad used to read a lot of passages from the Bible, so we learned through stories coming from the Bible. Is there a book that you have read more than once? I don't think I've read a book twice, not that I can remember. But I have thought of reading some great books another time. For example, Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm always thinking about whether I should start reading that book again, but it's very thick. Where can you get books? These days, most books are sold on the internet through Amazon or other online sites. But you can go to a bookstore and find a book that you would like to read. If you don't want to buy the book, you can go to a library and check a book out. On the internet, there are also free options for some books that you can find. Who is your favorite protagonist from any book? One of my favorite protagonists is Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. He's a very stoic and quiet individual, but he's very powerful, and he does a lot of hard work to improve the situation. Which do you prefer? Audiobook, paperback, hardback, or ebook? Audiobook is a book you can listen to. You can listen to it on a program like Audible. Paperback is when you have a foldable cover for a book. Hardback is when it has a hard cover. And ebook is when you buy a book for your Kindle or for your phone, and you can buy the books through Amazon. What book would you recommend to children? I would recommend something like The Alchemist. The Alchemist is a book about a boy on a journey. He tries to find his happiness and eventually finds it where he least expected it. I think it's a great book with many lessons that young people can learn from. Why doesn't everyone enjoy reading? Reading takes a lot of time, and unless you grew up with books when you were younger, in the future we might have more electronic books or audiobooks than real paperback books, but I do not believe that they will disappear. People still love holding and collecting real books, so I don't believe they will ever truly disappear. If you would like to see more English questions about books, you can check the description down below.